So, welcome to the PFP podcast. My name is Nelson Gord, and with me today is our guest, Matt DeSantis. Matt's the founder and CEO of AC Sports, one of the premier tournament organizations in the country. Since first launching AC Baseball back in 2007, Matt's grown the company into a multi-sport powerhouse, operating events in baseball and softball, with basketball and lacrosse coming down the pipeline. His signature event, the Cap Classic, has drawn over 240 teams, earned national recognition, including sports events to watch honors from Sports Events magazine. Under Matt's leadership, AC Sports now hosts 40 plus tournaments annually, attracting 1,300 plus teams and generating millions in economic impact. Prior to founding AC Sports, Matt served as the GM, coach, and instructor at one of Pittsburgh's largest travel baseball programs. He holds an associate degree in sports management from Keystone College and a bachelor's degree in social sciences from the University of Pittsburgh. Known for his coach-first philosophy, innovative event models, and emphasis on communication and customer experience, Matt continues to shape the youth sports landscape from his home base in Pittsburgh. So how does that make you feel, Matt? That accurate assessment of the life that is Matt DeSantis?
Yeah, I think it's accurate. I just consider myself just an ordinary baseball guy that runs tournaments for a living, but you made it sound very, very good, Nelson. So good job, and thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
And I say just a normal baseball guy. When you first started AC Sports, did you think it would get to this level, or this many teams, this many different events, or was it just an idea that's blown up in the past 18 years?
Yeah, no, it was definitely just an idea that had blown up. I had a partner in the beginning, and when we were coaching some of the travel teams, the closest we could go from Pittsburgh was out in the Hershey or New Jersey, Ohio, Toledo, so several hours away. And one day he said, "Why don't we run a tournament here so we can sleep in our own beds?" And that's literally how it started. We just ran a tournament, and then next thing you know, it was good timing, good relationships, good facilities, and it just sort of snowballed from there into what it is today.
Yeah, how many teams were that first event that you guys ran?
Oh gosh, probably 6 or 8. It was probably one age division or something. Maybe we had 2. Say we had 14 teams. It was probably one of the most stressful things ever. To go back to that day, pre-turf days, where it seemed like every weekend that I had a tournament, it rained. Then you're out there in the mud, throwing down field dry, trying to rake and get it in. So it was definitely would prefer to be in today's landscape with the turf fields than back when we started.
Kind of appropriate for the moment because, like we were talking earlier, exchanging messages, seemed like opening weekend had some weather issues up that way. But yeah, some good events on the docket for this weekend. You have your Mother's Day event, which looks like to be pretty well attended both on the baseball and softball side. Anything special that you guys do for Mother's Day? I know you like to involve the coaches and the parents. So anything stand out for that one?
Yeah, no, so that's one of our babies. That was one of the first. Mother's Day. It's definitely been a staple. I think we got it up to about 118 teams at one point, but that was a little too much. So the sweet spot is right where it is, right around 100 teams. I think actually currently we have 102. Right before we got on, somebody else was asking to get in, so we'll be just over 100. But like you had mentioned, the last few weeks have been difficult. There's been a ton of rain, so navigating that with a couple smaller sort of preseason tournaments, if you will, was definitely bringing me back to those beginning days of dealing with the mud and constant changes with the rainouts. But the thing about the Mother's Day, on Sundays we try to do pink outs and have everybody wear pink t-shirts, kind of in honor of the mothers. But then we also make a donation to a family affected by cancer down at the McGee Women's Hospital in Pittsburgh every year. Then we also have the pink baseballs to go with it. Thought I had one sitting here. Also this year we're incorporating in for some flowers for each kid to get to his mother. So we've ended up kind of in that experiential end of things. I mean, that was just the niche we kind of fell into. So we started them as baseball tournaments, competitive baseball events, but we're always trying to find a way to incorporate family and make it a good experience, not just on the field, but off the field for the families as well.
And this is kind of on a personal note here, the pink baseballs.
Here it is.
So we have there you go. They're Wilson balls. Okay.
Wilson. That one's a little faded. That's several years old.
Yeah. I was actually looking because we're not playing on Mother's Day. We opted not to do a tournament this year. We've played on Mother's Day the past couple of years with my son's team, but we're playing Friday, Saturday, and I was looking for some pink baseballs, shopping around. I couldn't find anything, real worthwhile, so we may have to have a little discussion around that. But
for the care packages that the Playbook 365 has sent me over the last couple of years, I'm sure I can find a few dozen with your name on it.
The guy, that's awesome. Yeah, and with it being Mother's Day, like I'm sure, there's teams that might not want to play, like in our case, but a lot of other groups not wanting to travel. So I was actually going through that event, and it looks like only about 15, 20 of the teams coming from outside of 100 miles for that one. But by contrast, when you get to the Cap Classic and a few others, it looks like 60, 70% of the teams are coming from outside that 100-mile radius, which is a huge number. You want to talk a little bit about how that happens and how you market to those teams and that whole process?
Yeah, I think the landscape has changed for that over the last several years. We used to get more out-of-town teams for Mother's Day, but I think just over the last 5 years, teams in general are playing a lot more and traveling a lot more. So I think that especially for those early ones, I think teams are staying a little more local, or if they're going to some travel tournaments, they're not too far. They're under that 100 miles, maybe even ones that they can commute to. And then when you're getting into school still in session, it's tough to get teams to travel a lot. So the Cap, man, that was one, and I'll just say it ended up just kind of being a perfect storm. We had a reputation, with Atlantic Coast baseball prior to doing the Cap Classic. So people kind of already knew what they were going to get with coming to one of our events. And then putting in the customized hats added a little different twist and flavor to that. So that really piqued the interest, I think, of some teams. It was just a perfect storm that it was worth it for people to travel. And then once the local team saw the new blood, if you will, that was coming in, and the opportunity to play teams from Canada, Michigan, and even Illinois, down in the Carolinas, they're all coming here into Pittsburgh. That doesn't happen too often. So I think it was just that perfect storm that culminated right there.
I was looking at some of that too, and this isn't just for this year's classic, but over time, any idea how many different states have played in the event or played in one of your events?
Yeah, it's right around 15, 16 plus Canada. That's just for the Pittsburgh one. Once we got into doing the one in North Carolina, we were doing one down there at Boomba Sports Complex down near Orlando. We haven't had that one for the last couple of years due to facility requirements and contracts. So hopefully, it looks like we potentially will be back there in the fall of 26. We're kind of crossing our fingers there. But after adding those two, there's a lot more than 15 different states in Canada.
I think I counted something like 32, all inclusive when you add in those other events, which got
sounds about right.
18 to check off. Might have to venture out west somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the only way to get that to happen is having something out in these different areas on the West Coast in order to get that. I don't know many Washington and California teams are going to fly out here.
I know you have a lot of the organizations that are pretty loyal to your events. How do you guys go about working with different groups at large scale rather than just one-off teams? Are there special things that you provide to them or early access or just, repeat customers? How's that work out?
Well, it is repeat customers, and it's also how I built this was based off the relationships. That's been a big thing with me from the beginning is all of the relationships that we were able to build and then just continue to foster those, with the 5-6 biggest programs in Pittsburgh, has been a huge thing for us. So when we go into these newer areas, these different areas, it's kind of looking to see, go to them first and, look at them and say if they'll end up attending some of these events in these newer areas. But everything has been about relationships, and as we continue to grow, it's one thing that I'm really making sure with our staff is we don't lose sort of that personal touch and the relationships. And it's getting tougher in today's day and age with social media, and there's so many different robocalls that are, everybody gets. I think everybody's car insurance at one point in time has been up. But we really need to constantly make sure that we're trying to get people on the phone first so we can nurture that relationship. And if they don't want to be on the phone, that's okay. Then we got to resort to text and email. But I think it's definitely relationships in this business, whether it's the teams, the facilities, the umpires. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Talking to Billy, that's one thing. He has kind of his highlights of each group that Playbook works with, and he puts you guys at the top of the list as far as that, just the interaction with the coaches and the families and daily updates going out. Did that start from event one, or was that something that you realized a couple years in was vital to making these things run? What was the genesis of that, communication cadence?
So I tried to do everything based off of what I didn't like that was happening at other tournaments that we would go to when I was coaching. I can remember a time that I showed up in Ohio to a game with our team, and it was a ghost town. There was nobody there. We received no communication. I was sort of dumbfounded, so I called the tournament director. His response was, "It's raining." He didn't know it was canceled. So that was one of the things as a coach, and I'm sure that you can resonate with this, is that communication is huge to you, because when you don't know what's going on, you got 10, 12, 13 other sets of families that are coming to you looking for information. And so that gets a little hard for you. So for us, the communication aspect is just to make sure that we over communicate. I'd rather have the complaint of you guys contact us too much as opposed to, being on the other end of it. And as, now being a father of 4 and my kids, my oldest is 10 and starting to get into sports now, my younger self did not realize how much that communication means, but also the scheduling that you can go and plan. I mean, we got so many different sporting events that are going on right now. If you don't know the times for them until the day before, 2 days before, you got to coordinate, travel, who's taking who, and then 3 of them going in a different direction, you need help. So being able to get the communication out so that families can schedule ahead of time is another real big thing for us.
So with the scheduling, what's that process look like for you guys? As teams come in, do you start to schedule, or do you have like a template that you're working off of? And how soon in advance do you begin doing that for each event?
For the existing repeat events, we pretty much have those templates already made, and we kind of stick close to them. There's always different variables. So the new division might end up having 15 more teams this coming year than it did the previous year, or the 12 you might be down. So we got to mix things around a little bit. But the big thing of that is in the fourth quarter of the previous year, I'll go through each and every schedule and just make sure that what we have allotted for the max amount of teams, we have the field space for it. And then as we get going, we just kind of monitor that each and every week. This, like I said, this division's taken off, this one's not, and then we'll start to make, some adjustments from there. But we have what we call our tournament timelines, and those start about 6 weeks out for tournament-specific stuff. So each and every week, once we get to that point in about March, it's almost like Groundhog's Day. It's the same thing. It's just a different event that you're plugging in for what we need to do there. But 3 weeks out, we pretty much have the schedule already done. And then 2 weeks out, we kind of finalize it and post it on that Friday 2 weeks before the event. That was what we found was like our sweet spot. 3 weeks was a little too early. 1 week and the week of was definitely too late for us. And I know that works for some others, but I think, for us, when we get so many teams that are traveling, the sooner we can get it out, the more it allows them to plan, to figure out whatever they're going to do for team dinners or whatever there is to do in the area, whether it's a Pirates game or, going to a theme park. And we found that that's the best case scenario to allow. families enough time to plan for things that they need to do when they come into town.
And those families coming into town, again, that's one thing that I think really sets you apart from some other organizations is how closely tied you are to the hotel, to the CVB side, to all of that. Again, was that something that has just developed over time, or at what point did you see the opportunity how to make all those pieces work together in this rapidly growing industry?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of similar to the story of how it started. Man, I'll never forget. I'm gonna send this to him, but Andrew Frost was working at the Hampton Inn, way back in the beginning, and a team had contacted us and said, "Hey, we're coming into town. Where should we stay?" And I was like, "I don't know." So I just looked up, and the closest hotel was the Hampton Inn. It was right off, and I called him, and I'll never forget. He came down, and he brought me an ice bucket. And actually, it was Gretchen Nutt. She was leaving, and he was taking over. They brought me a ice bucket with some candy in it and whatnot. And it was like, so they started to say, "Well, just have them call us," and then that ended up leading on down the road to we need more hotels involved, and then the hotels would end up providing us their own booking link that people could go through, and then that went on for a little while. I was having to put together my own files with links and send it out to teams and just saying, look, here are places that you can stay in the area. We already talked to them. This is the lowest rate that they're advertised, so we kind of already did the work for you, so you don't have to go around and Google and find all these different hotels. Until it came to a point where we started to grow, we started getting more out of town teams, and maybe he'll watch this or not, but I don't know that I've actually even ever told maybe Billy or Greg at the time, but I found it from looking at Tom Davidson's website with Pastime. So thank you, Tom. I saw that he found this software. So I just kept trying to find this Alliance reservation site, and I could not find it. And one day I finally came across it, and that was how we started getting involved with Alliance Reservations Network, which is now turned into Staybook for the Playbook customers. And that evolution of it just kind of went along with the mentality of looking to other tournament companies that we would go as a coach and go play in, and the things we didn't like, we would have to go and find our own housing. So come across a software, and then we can provide a booking link that people can go to. So that was a real big eye opener for us, and that was a real big shift in our business, because it really provided an opportunity to the teams to make it easy after they registered. Right? We would reach out to them. Hey, here's the link. You can put the whole block on, or your parents can go book through this link. And then boom, it was just done. And as we started to get into that and doing I think there's a lot of negative attention around stay to play or play and stay, however you want to word it. But the thing I think about it is that for us, at least, is more so it's a communication thing, but we're providing you a service. We've already gone and done the work to get hotels contracted with us, and they're already contracted the lowest group rate. So even if you call to get on your own, they're going to give you the same rate. So we've already saved you the time, and now with the integrations between Playbook and Staybook, it's just a no-brainer to be able to use both platforms, especially now that they're syncing together, which tremendously makes our life easier. And I think the more and more we get involved into this software and how Playbook is streamlining it, just like this from the hotel side and a couple other things, it's saving us time from how we used to do it. The time from the Excel sheets and, putting things together and having to manually, do calculations and standings and then go and put, okay, well, this was the 1 seed. Let me put them in here. This was the 2 seed. And then just taking several hours after pool play's done. I mean, that was probably the biggest thing for us in the beginning of doing a demo with Billy, was being able to see whiteboard. And, I'm just going to drag and drop to make these changes instead of having to go into a drop-down menu and change date, time, location, teams. And then, hey, Matt, by the way, you just click this button to advance the teams, and it's immediately done. I mean, that has been one of the biggest things for us from the Playbook 365 standpoint is the amount of time that it's been able to save us. And therefore, with that time, now we're able to make that experience a little bit better for the families, a little bit better for the coaches, because we can communicate on different aspects for the tournament.
I'm not even certain what happened first, ARN or Playbook for you guys.
ARN.
So it's ARN. Then at what point, like what year did you start using Playbook? Because I'm not positive of it.
Oh man, that's a good Billy question. You probably know the exact date. We're probably 7 years in, maybe. And so that was I'm not even sure. We were just starting to look for different platforms, and I can't remember if I just Googled and came across Playbook at that time, or Billy had reached out. Actually, I think Billy had reached out to us, and somebody forwarded me the email. Typically, I wouldn't really pay attention to those, because there's so much spam. But back then, not as much. I was like, well, we're looking. So I think we got on a demo, and I think Billy, we were on there for about 2.5 hours, probably, going through everything. And so we jumped on. And then after, the one big thing from the beginning was, back in that day, Billy was very good at listening. Back to the day when he was a one-man show. Listening, and then, okay, this makes sense. We can incorporate it. Yes, we can change this, or we can add this. So constantly, every single year, new features have been added on, which has made our lives easier as tournament directors and business owner, because again, it goes back to us being able to save time from the way that we were doing things previously. So at that time, we were also using an ARN for several years. And he just kept telling him, like, Billy, can you get this ARN company to work with you so we can maybe just use the roster, or when people make their reservations, that adds them to the roster, or vice versa, and then we can kind of track who's staying, who's not staying. And so finally, things happened. Both sides, agreed they were going to talk, and then that was the last I ever heard about it. I never even knew they talked. And then next thing I know, Billy shot me a message like, "Hey, just wanted to let you know, this has happened." I was like, "What do you mean this is happening?" It was like, you never even really told me. Thought we were buddies. You kind of kept that under wraps. Thought we were tighter than that. But, so I think it's been a real good marriage, at least from the customer standpoint so far, because I know there's been a lot more resources, a lot of Playbook 365, some more developers, and the amount of updates that you guys are pushing out now. I would say probably, I would really like to know this from Billy, but I would say what he was doing in a year, you're probably doing in a quarter, maybe less now. So I think that's been a huge benefit for us as a customer on both ends.
For sure. You didn't know you're going to be at the core of a whole M&A group there. Did you get any sort of...
I'm still waiting for it, yeah.
I bet. It sounds at least like a cruise or something's coming your way at some point.
I think, this is what I'll show you. This is what I got.
Perfect. That's just like a cruise. A lot of stress involved. Different ways of relieving it, vacation and, some squishy balls. Either way works.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, with how much they listen to our needs and how fast they're incorporating some of those, I think that was worth it for us.
It's fast, but never fast enough, right, Matt?
Oh, yeah, sure. I know. I'm sure they'll all tell you about my laundry list of...
No, but it's so cool. No, I mean, it is it's Billy's superpower, his ability to listen, and almost like when you're talking to him, you can see that he's walking through it in his brain, right, as you're having the conversation. And then all of a sudden, kind of similar to the discussion with ARN, all of a sudden it comes to fruition, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we added that." You didn't even know he did it, or that it was seriously going to happen, and it just rolls out. So that makes it, on my end, when I'm talking to groups, really easy to project upon them. Hey, if you have an idea, other people probably do as well. So this is going to be good for everybody involved. It is just amazing how quickly he gets a lot of those things done. What's next? What do you think? What are the big things? And I know we've had these conversations offline, but whether it is on the platform side or just with you guys as a business, what are you looking to really get incorporated or really push forward?
I think for us right now is just to continue to enhance upon that housing piece. I know Staybook is going through a big project right now to, um, I guess, update a lot of their, you have to excuse my language, I'm just a baseball guy, but all the different platforms and technology they have, I guess, to get more with the times. And I think with the integration piece and the API between Playbook and Staybook, I think for us continuing to grow that, I think is a huge piece for us. Something that's always kind of been interesting, because here we have to be real involved with the umpire assigning piece for our events. So potentially something with that to be able to help do that through Playbook as opposed to Arbiter, or maybe you can get some sort of API going on there, because then I think that helps us also to communicate to our umpires better. Playbook has really streamlined communication for us, because it used to be with some of these softwares way back when that you can use them for registration, but then you have to use something else for the schedules and scores, and then you have to use something else kind of on your accounting back end for who's paid and who's not paid. Once that Playbook has incorporated all of that for us, we don't have to download this information on a weekly basis and take it over to here to communicate with them, or take it over to here to keep track of, payments, which we still do through zapping the information into a Google Sheet. But it's very nice to go in there whenever we're sending a mass email out to everybody that's in the tournament via Playbook, or we want to put out a push notification, or we want to text them. But to be able to have that opportunity to do that, not only just for everyone that's involved with coaching or team admins, or the club admin, but to be able to do that to the parents as well. Because no offense if any coaches that may watch this, some are good at communicating, some are god awful. They don't relay the information to their parents, and then their parents reach out directly to us, and it's like, we told them this, we don't really want to, but now we have that ability to be able to send information directly to the parents regarding game times, if there's any changes or things to do in the area, whatever it may be. Any other piece of communication that Playbook can continue to streamline or get better at, I think it's hugely beneficial to us and our model, but I think to anybody else that would potentially jump on board.
And just thinking about the communication, obviously that's kind of tied to weather, right? Very top of mind this time of year, especially. And then that goes into facilities. And I realize that a number of the facilities that you guys use now are turf complexes, or at least have a turf field or two. What are some of those premier complexes that you're using up your way or in other areas? And they relatively new, because I'm sure they weren't even around years ago when you started this. What do those venues look like, and what are some of the best ones that you guys utilize every year?
Yeah, well, so there's been a lot. There's not really one huge complex around here, at least in the Pittsburgh area. But there's lots of different high schools that have gotten on board to turf their complexes now. One thing I'll say about turf complexes, and since you touched on the weather, and there's a lot of people that'll just play right through that and have no care in the world. But I'll tell you what, and you were a player. If you're playing on a dirt field and your footing was a little off because it's a little muddy or tacky, you're not going full speed. You don't have that on turf. So at certain points in time, just because you have turf does not mean that you just get to go play through the weather. In my opinion, from a player safety standpoint, it's way more dangerous on a turf field in those types of situations than is it anything else. You're going full speed, you hit the base, and there you go. You step on the home plate and you just you slide. Those are difficult situations to navigate through. And the thing that I found is that being able to deal with these weather situations, for me, is I tape like every newscast on Thursday Thursday night through Sunday morning. Because the weather apps, I mean, they're good, but they don't really give you that much. When you get to the local weather forecast and they show you the timing, then you can make better decisions. And to me, that's how I've been able to be good at handling the weather situations. First of all, I've had 9 billion of them. From back in the day, it seemed like when we started, every time I ran a tournament, it rained. But you got to be looking ahead as a tournament director to see what's coming and then develop a plan prior to it getting here. Because I'm sure that a lot of tournament directors can share the pain of this. As soon as that first raindrop hits, if they don't know anything, you're getting hit up 9 million different directions. Coaches want to, what are we doing? What are we doing? So to be able to have a plan prior to that happening is extremely beneficial. And then again, back to a playbook with the communication standpoint, but to be able to post those notes on the schedule, but then have the weather and events tab, we just keep that log going of all the communication that we have going out. So at any point in time, a parent needs to know what's going on, they can click it and they can see everything that's been sent out to them. But to go back to your question about the facilities, I mean, that's Shipyard Park hands down is the best facility that we use. There's great people there, great location, and I mean, it's just picturesque. I'm not sure if you've ever been there, but that's got to be one of the top 5-10 parks in the country. And the guys down there and everybody who works there, they're great people too. So it's a real good working relationship and situation that we have down there.
And how does, with those relationships, you have the employees and the staff at Shipyard or at a different field, you have your, municipalities and the different, community groups, you have the hotels, you have yourself and your staff. How does all that, do you guys all work together? Or are you kind of the core of it, communicating with each one individually? Is there time to really hammer out some details or plan for the future, right? Because I'm sure you have some ideas on some things that could and should be done that you want to broadcast to them, but they have to work together. How does all that, that dynamic work?
That's that's a tough one to navigate for I think any company and any business. And first and foremost comes down to your processes and do you have them documented? I'm not saying that we have them all documented. We have a decent amount, but we started to get into that a little bit more over the last year. So when you bring in somebody new, where they have those expectations, to be able to tell them their expectations, that's fine, but it's got to be written down. So whether that's dealing with the housing or it's our site directors or whatever it is, you have to have those in place and written down. Otherwise, as we continue to grow, that's going to be a tough thing to do. Then we're going to we'll lose that personal touch. We'll lose part of the communication. And at this point in time, we can't afford to lose any of that. I mean, that's our bread and butter. So we need to make sure that stuff is on point as we continue to grow. I mean, we're slated right now. I mean, I kind of feel like we're sitting on a rocket, just kind of ready to light it. That's partly me sort of holding it back. Had some turnover with the employees over the last couple of years, and now we're trying to really bulk up from a staffing standpoint. We're actually hiring more than we need, so that makes it a little bit difficult, but preparing for the future, because next year we already have events that are on the docket for Virginia. We have a couple down in Maryland, where we're talking to a couple locations down there closer to the beach, kind of doing more of a destination vacation type stuff, and then looking at taking the Cat Classic out into the Midwest for a weekend. So we have a couple that we're talking to out there that we feel good about, but as we saw you in Oklahoma at the symposium out there, we had a really good experience, a lot of good meetings, but now it's just finding the right fit. So with the staffing, that's the reason why we're bulking up right now, is to be more prepared for that expansion. But we got to have those processes in place. And then we've harped on communication a bunch of times. That's the one thing from dealing with the different facilities, whether you're dealing with the facility or the site workers of the facility, whether it's leading up to it or during the event, it's just constant. You have to constantly be in touch with them and checking in. Because one, it's good for the relationship, but two, it helps even our part-time site workers to be more prepared for a potential weather event, or if there's something going on with a team, or we need to get in touch with an umpire. It's just constant communication. I mean, that's the secret, which isn't really a big secret. The secret part about it is it just takes a lot of time to do, so you have to invest a lot of time into the communication aspect.
And who are those key people on your staff now? And, I know in any business, especially over 2 decades, there's always going to be turnover. But as you were growing this and where you're at now, who are some of those key people that have made AC Sports run outside yourself?
Yeah, so that's Mark Nishkash. He's handling everything housing right now. He started last year with us more so on the event side, but it was just it was a better fit for him. That's the one thing that I'm trying to find anymore is we're just trying to hire the right person that fits and gels with the team, because I've always been a team guy. Even back to the playing days, it was always about the team. It wasn't about me. So Mark is doing a phenomenal job over on that end, and it's just he's just running with it. So then Jordan, she's on our softball side. Then Brady and Ben are on the baseball side. Brady's the one that kind of gets the shaft a little bit because he's the one that, hey, I need this done. So it goes to him. Because he's been here the longest. Funny story about him is that I coached him back in the day, which, it's making me, he's dating me, feeling like I'm getting real old here, getting these grays, dealing with these young people. But anyhow, and then he was a site director for us a long time, and he's been with us for full time for about 3-4 years now. And then Kim, she handles all of our accounts payable and receivables, and they're all really good fits. They're all rock stars for us right now. And then we got 2 guys that are coming in to help get the basketball going with us. And then we have Crystal and Sherry, who I think are phenomenal people who are going to be starting this week. And we're still quite unsure exactly what they'll be doing, and we're all on the same page, but I just know that those 2 are the right fit. So we just got to find how they fit on our chain there and make our chain stronger.
You mentioned the basketball piece of it. What does that look like to jump into new sports and different venues, and what's the plan there?
They're like, they're like starting many new businesses, especially when we get into these different areas. Even though we've been around for 20 years on the baseball side, get in a different area, people still don't know who we are. But the basketball piece was something we just kind of sort of fell into. We got hired to help run some events for a group, and those were AAU events. And AAU basketball is a different breed, it's a different animal. So we learned a lot about it. That industry, man, that's all about the gate. And they charge astronomical amounts to get into these basketball events. I never understood why until we're in this, because you lose money on the registration fees. You're paying the facilities, you're paying the refs. You're lucky if you break even. That's why they're charging $20, $30 a head at the gate. That's the only way that they can make money. And then a lot of that is taking a check at the event, and we're just so far past those days. So learning from that, taking a step back, this winter we're getting into more of the travel local end of it, and hopefully starting with a couple tournaments there on that end, because it's already our database. Most of these coaches, they do multiple sports. So a lot of them already, and with girls as well now with the softball, but they're playing travel, so they already know what they're going to get from us. We already have a relationship with a lot of them, and that's just kind of what we're banking on to carry us into that basketball market there. Not that it'll be easy, but it's something we're hoping to really get going. And it's nice because it complements what we have going now. It's in the off season, in our planning season. but I always wanted to do basketball for the last 15 years. Every time I was sitting out there raking back in the early days and mud and starting up, I'm like, man, I wish I should just run basketball events. There's no weather. There's no rain. I can't get rained out.
That's when I was a high school coach. I remember we'd go practice in the gym, right when we get washed out on the field, and it would bother me like looking at a dirty backboard, like when the glass had fingerprints and stuff on it. I'm like, what the heck? They can't even do that. We're out there dragging the field, raking the field,
Yeah.
doing the mound. I'm like, there's one thing to do: just sweep the floor, wipe down the glass. How hard can it be? So I guess each one looks at it a little bit differently. But then, did you play multiple sports growing up?
I did. Oh yeah, I think like everybody, you start with soccer. I played baseball. I played basketball. So basketball, I played up through 8th grade. I think I was the same height in 8th grade, so I think that's why I was like good at basketball. And then everybody else caught up, and it was like, okay, this isn't really your sport. Baseball was always my sport. Was always my love, my passion. That was the thing. As you go through and you get into college, teaching you your time management, your responsibilities, teaching you to deal with a lot of failures, and continue to go on. But I think one of the biggest things with it that I took away from playing sports, and especially baseball, since that's the one I did most competitively, was I always had a goal. And then once it was met, it was like, okay, what's the next goal? And what's the next? It never really stopped. Actually, I guess for baseball it did, because as we all grow up and want to be professional baseball players, I'm sitting here talking to you on a screen. I'm not out there playing professional baseball, so it's not. But I've carried that over into the business, and it's all like, what's the next goal? What's the next step? And at times, I don't think that needs to be, hey, where's the next area that you're getting into? I think a lot of this over the last year for me has been the goal. Okay, what can we change internally? And then every single August and that dead time and into September, because we got out of the fall ball a few years ago. Just as we started to run more events, it wasn't beneficial for us to do fall ball and tax everyone that worked here. By doing more events, it made sense to review all of our events that we had in the spring and summer. Okay, what can we take away from it? What can we make better? Read all the surveys, which we do read, and just what are the takeaways? What can we fix? There's something to do about this one, or what can we not do? And then also too, it gave us the opportunity to, okay, well, here's the bottom 2 fields. Let's cut those ones and find 2 new ones. So planning is a huge part to our off season.
Absolutely, and multiple sports, all the things that you're talking about. How has it impacted you now being a parent? I'm wondering, seeing the crazy coaches and the crazy parents, and I'm probably, sure some of the messaging that you received. How's that shape, you as a parent now? And what are your kids doing? Are they participating in different things and giving you a chance to put it into action?
Yeah, so I got a girl and 3 boys. My daughter's about to be 10, so she's into soccer, basketball. She tried softball at one point. Didn't have the best experience. And then my second and third, my 2 sons, well, I have 3, but the 8-year-old, I really got to think about these, Nelson. My 8-year-old and then my 5-year-old, they do soccer and baseball. And my 8-year-old also does basketball. But it's interesting being the parent, because I never understood when I was coaching, like, oh, Mr. So-and-so is goofy. He always sits in the outfield. Like, what's it until he's sitting out there by himself for, And now as a parent, like, I'm that guy. People probably think I'm the most antisocial guy, but a lot of times I mutter stuff under my breath, and that's usually about my own kids. Sometimes I mutter stuff about, referees or umpires, but I also sit back and thinking, like, I know the job, right? On the other hand. So it's funny when you want to do something, like, man, I can't be a hypocrite. I can't do that. Like, I have this in my rules. Like, I'm not going to yell at this guy because I know what they have to go through. But I think for me, it's just the competitive fire from when you're a player sort of comes back and watching your own kid. I got roped. I try not to coach. And the reason I try not to coach is if I was younger, I probably would. But I feel that I'll be the most unfair to my own children. And as a displayed yesterday in the backyard, a couple of my kids, they wanted to hit. So I was like, okay. And then, Martino's out there, like this, his hands are way out here. I'm like, just bring closer behind your ear, would you please? He's like, and he starts yelling at me. And he's like, no. And I said, okay. So my dad, he's in from out of town. He's sitting there. He's like, he's right. I was like, look, you actually put a ball in the air that time. So it's just funny. So I can't deal with that. I can't deal with that on a daily basis of coaching. So it's interesting going to the other side, going to soccer tournaments or whatever, like in my mind, picking out everything, and I'm like, man, we could really help these guys, do this. Or we went to the soccer tournament. I'm sitting there thinking, now I know why it's so beneficial for us to have the parents' information to send the info out so they get it. Because I don't get anything.
Yep.
I don't get anything. And I'm the guy too, like I'm looking at Team Snap or Game Changer. I don't care about what other teams are coming. I don't care about what facilities we're playing on. Because I know how it goes. It's not important to me. I think the thing that gets lost so much in this youth sports, and it's tough, with what I do for a living, but man, they just need to learn to love the game. Whatever that game is, they just need to learn to love it at this point. They don't need to be successful, which that's been the toughest part for me, is that my ideals, my values, my visions for my kids and their sports right now do not align with 90% of people out there. It's a status quo of, hey, you have to be on this team. And people say they don't care about winning, but their actions dictate something else. And that would be the toughest thing for me as a parent, is having to navigate with those situations. Hence the reason why I try to go and sit by myself.
It's wild. And I don't know about you, but I never played a travel sport. Like,
No.
I think I made some semblance of it when we were 14. A kid got hurt. So I was like on the all-star team at that point, which is nothing like we have today, right? So sometimes I catch myself looking at my son or my daughters and kind of the same mental exercise, like being a little bit more critical of them. But then I have to take a step back and be like, wow, like I was never put into this situation. And I learned to love the game because I would go and play wiffle ball, and imitate every player with my
Yeah.
brother, or we'd go down to to the park and to the tennis courts and play home run derby, do things that were just simply playing without all this other added pressure and stats and rankings and everything. So it's hard to reflect on your own childhood and all the things that you loved about it, but also, kind of give them the things that they think they need, or we think they need, right? Because that's what all the other kids are doing, or the other people are saying. So it's a tough thing to navigate, undoubtedly so.
Yeah, I think that this specialization, I mean, but like you brought up when we were kids, you went from one sport to the next, depending on the season. If you didn't play that sport, then you just went when you were a kid, right? I mean, and I'm not knocking it. I've been involved in it, and I keep trying to catch myself with my own kids because I just got a text about, oh, basketball. There's this camp going on. And then like you feel pressure to do it because everybody else is doing it, and it's like, but timeout. Like for my daughter, I love her to death, but she's always gonna be vertically challenged. She's always gonna be the smallest. But they just need to learn to be athletes, but more importantly, just learn to be a kid. And I did it in high school, but at this age, to be going from a lesson to a practice 2 3 days a week to 2 3 games a week, and then stacking multiple sports on each other. Listen, I'm guilty of doing it to a degree, but I've it's tough for me. Like, you commit to it, you committed to it. But these younger guys, like, if they don't want to go one night, it's like, all right, like, that's fine. You go play with your cousin, okay, all right. It's not that I like it, but I think as parents, man, we got to sit back sometimes and just think, like, yes, they want to do it, and I understand that, but man, they gotta have these breaks too.
Yeah,
You
there's
know?
got to be some balance in there. But there is a happy medium. I was having the conversation with my wife. I'm like, I honestly don't know what I did with all my time when I was a kid. Because for as much as our kids have going on, I had none of it. So like, get home, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go play.
Yeah, and the
It's
tablets and
just
the games and all that. Like,
yeah,
we didn't have that.
none of that. RBI baseball, maybe.
Yeah, man, I remember that we were late to the game, but getting the Nintendo
Yep.
came out. We all piled in the van, and our parents drove us to Toys R Us, and they bought a Nintendo, and then that was like constant fighting. After a few years, my mom actually threw it in the trash, and then I snuck out. I snuck out to the curb, and I went and got it. Whether she was going to leave it there or not, I don't know. I think she probably was. But
Risky moves right there.
could have been
Putting in the
ground for
fire.
life.
Couple things, and I know we're going on an hour here, so a couple things we'll finish off with. What's in 18 years of doing this, like the favorite event that you were either a part of, you were running, that you witnessed? Like, what's the one memory you have of that perfect event that you guys pulled off?
I think it's just the Cap Classic Pittsburgh, just because it's the culmination kind of everything that we do. It's the biggest one. Teams from everywhere. People love it because they're always playing different teams from different states. So when we go through and split them up, trying to split them up in the pools, we go through like the Pittsburgh teams first, and then it's to go through the rest of Pennsylvania if there's any teams. Then go to Ohio since it's so close, and just trying to split them up so that everybody's playing different teams, different states that they wouldn't normally have the opportunity to do. And then typically when the Pirates are in town and we do the opening ceremonies, they all get to go down and walk on the warning track before the game, which I think as a kid is really, really cool. That's just that would be it. That would be the Cap Classic Pittsburgh, and that's the baby. That's the one that everyone knows. Nobody knows the Diamond Classic unless you're local or you just found it and you're going to it. But that's the one.
Was there a year in particular, or a game, or a moment that was a part of one of them that's very vivid to you? They're like, wow, this is pretty incredible.
The moment that I think that I realized it was incredible is when I was at the Pirate game and actually seeing the name go up on the video board and then panning across the kids, and then tremendous sight to see them lined up from right field. Mark, I was telling you about the hotels. He used to be our guy with the Pirates. I think in 1 year, we had it all the way around. He had to get special approval, and I think they walked like almost the whole area, but the whole field was almost lined up with players, and that was a moment where I was like, "Wow, this is big." Like, that it's big when you see it on paper. Hey, there's 200 some teams. Like, okay, that's a lot of teams, but when you see the amount of people, that was just that was kind of a moment where I was like, "Wow, this is pretty big." Yeah, it was very cool to see them. And, then they all have their jerseys and their hats on. So that was very interesting.
Ask you kind of a two-parted one here to close us off. I'm questioning the order now, but if you weren't doing this, what do you think you'd be doing?
Okay.
And then the second part of that would be whether it is in baseball or this industry or just in business, who have you looked up to or who's mentored you to help you get to where you are today?
I would definitely be doing something. I'm sure probably in sports. That was always the passion. Who knows? It was a tremendous opportunity for me to get into the insurance world at one point in time, and I was like, no, I like making my $40,000 a year and coaching baseball and working 80 hours a week. Right now, I'd probably be making a boatload more. I don't know. I'd probably, I might still be involved with the baseball facility and coaching. That would probably be where I'd be at if we didn't start doing these tournaments. Who have I looked up to? Oh man, I think so. The funny part about this, and I'm gonna say this and try to see if you won't smile. But the mentor in the very beginning, when I was doing this, and I still talk to him today, but it was Harry Ocean. Can you believe that?
Mm-hmm.
Good old Harry.
That is pretty wild.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, no. I mean, Harry was, you know, at that point in time, a young kid just starting to do events, and I'm calling him and asking him all these questions and whatever. I mean, basically a competitor, but no, I never was in Harry's mind. So he was the guy from the tournament side that sort of helped me through this, especially in the beginning. He may or may not have been the direct reasons why I implemented some certain things that I didn't like in some certain tournaments.
That comes with the territory, right? You learn not only what to do, but what not to do. I mean, that's part of it. It's part of growing.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Well, hey man, I appreciate you guys and everything that you continue to do and you taking the time here today. I know we covered a whole bunch of different topics, but keep it coming. Keep your feedback coming and all the great ideas that you have because it only makes a playbook stronger. And I know Billy's always up for a challenge. So as much as we joke about it, we appreciate it and keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. And I guess I'll leave you with one other thing that I just thought about. Kind of my relationships, with all the teams or whatever, but an important relationship with Billy. He's the only service that I pay for that has been to my house and then ended up staying and eating dinner with my family. So, and then at a certain critical point when I needed them, they flew up here and were like, "Hey, how can we help you through this portion of this downtime in your business?" So I think that's been one key piece, and, especially for Playbook and him driving the home there, is that I think our visions align, and I think relationships matter to him, and now he's brought on other people like yourself that I think that matters as well. So that would be one of the big takeaways from using Playbook is just the relationship side of it. So I thank you and everybody else for that because it's really important to us.
That's awesome to hear. It means a lot because we talk about it all the time. We're not just dealing with software or baseball tournaments. We're dealing with people and their livelihood and their families.